Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing the expansion for Micro Dojo, specifically Loyalty and Deceit. This is a game that is currently on Kickstarter. I'll have a link down below, and everything you see here is a prototype, rules, components, all that stuff subject to change. But like I said already, this is an expansion to Micro Dojo. Micro Dojo is a game I already reviewed. I'll link to that below if I remember. But effectively, this is a game of tactical back and forth as you try to take various actions, move your people, well, not only your people, they're communal people, moving them around the board, activating these characters in order to go ahead and take the actions underneath them. These actions are going to be trying to build various buildings, to try to earn various points, to trade goods in for points, to gather goods, and then to earn these various bonuses, these objectives at the top, until eventually one player hits 7 points in the game. That's the original Micro Dojo concept. And Loyalty and Deceit is going to be adding new things to that game. So if you're someone who hasn't played Micro Dojo, I recommend watching the other reviews so you can get a more full picture than the brief overview I gave. But the expansion Loyalty and Deceit is adding a few things. It's going to be adding different faction buildings to the game. So every single game, you're going to have some buildings from specific factions in the game, and you have the opportunity to earn these tokens. These are favor tokens in those factions in order to trade them in to build those buildings. So it's adding more variety to the experience in the form of different factions and different faction-specific buildings. You're also going to have a track that goes around the edge of the board as well. And that track, as you earn these options to move up the track, you're going to get the opportunity to earn specific actions from those marks on the side. Once you hit 1, 2, whenever you hit the 2 over there, you'll earn that extra action. And when you hit 5, you'll have the opportunity to get the specific buildings. These are all randomly set before you start the game, or if you really want, you could pick and choose and structure your own setup and scenario. And speaking of structuring your own setup and scenario, one of the things that this game does very specifically different than the original is it gives you a modular board. So this board over here, first of all, we can flip it over to the other side to have a different length of the game. You'll have a different track around the edge. We don't have that here on the prototype, but you will have that in your final game. But additionally, you have this insert over here. This is a double, triple layered board, really, in which you'll have the opportunity to take the various action tiles and structure your own action, which is a big improvement from the original game, where you just had this singular board with specific actions on that board and no ability to modify the setup of the game. You now have a whole bunch of action tiles in the game. They're going to be double-sided action tiles. If I recall correctly, there are 12 double-sided action tiles. You'll be using 9 of them in the game, and then there is some guidance as far as structuring a balanced board. You can choose to follow that or not. That's up to you, but that will provide some degree of balance, making sure you have actions, making sure you have buildings, making sure that the priority or the strength of the actions are properly centered. Again, you could throw all of that out the window and structure the boards as you want, but those 12 actions, or 12 double-sided, so 24 possible actions, and the way you configure your board will give you a lot more variability to the core puzzle that is Micro Dojo. Combine that with the additional buildings you have from the various factions, from the new track around the side, from a whole bunch of new objectives that are just some new objectives, and then new objectives that will that will work together with the new mechanics of the game, those loyalty and favor, and then using those to basically give you a more modular Micro Dojo experience. The last thing it adds is going to add these extra characters. The original Micro Dojo had just the characters you can utilize however you want, just considering them basic vanilla characters, but also in the advanced mode of the game, it also has characters you can activate to get these extra movement actions, each character having a special way that they move, and there's different ways you can activate those depending on the module or variation that you're playing, and this will give you more characters. It'll give you 4 new characters as far as new ways to, again, have those different movement bonuses. Additionally, they will have both a regular, cheap version of the game, the same way the original Micro Dojo did, as well as a upgraded version of the game. Upgraded version giving you meeples instead of little cardboard chits, as well as potentially, I believe, there is a box, and I think this triple layered board might be specific to the deluxe edition. You can check out the Kickstarter page for those specific details, but they are having a basic and a deluxe version of Micro Dojo. Still maintaining the very, very small size that Micro Dojo is famous for, but giving you a slightly more premium, as well as somewhere you can actually store it if you're someone like me who doesn't particularly love storing just bags of components on your shelf. And that's everything we have here in the expansion, which brings us time to the review covering the differences, the changes, and all that. And honestly, it's just mostly positive. I don't think there's a single thing in this expansion that I don't like. Everything is good. I mean, you can check out my original Micro Dojo review. For context, this is a game that is a 3 out of 5 for me, or the original game, before we come here, is a 3 out of 5 for me in terms of it is a good game, it gives you a fun experience, but at the same time, it is one that is doing an amazing job as far as the content, the price point, the size, all of that for the game you get out of it, while at the same time, I'm just looking for more of a game, regardless, and not taking into account what it does with so little, if that makes sense. Now, the Micro Dojo expansion, the Loyalty and Deceit, just just adds more to the experience, and all of it in a good way. First of all, this double-sided board that you can mix and match those actions over here, that is the best part of the expansion to me by far. While I like all of the stuff the expansion brings, the fact that you can have a modular experience gives you the same Micro Dojo experience, but with a lot more variability. You're not constantly saying, oh, I'm just gonna, here's the coin action, here's the building action. You're not locked into the exact same patterns every single time. Now, the game is mostly the same. You're still gonna be following those same story points, and if you didn't like Micro Dojo, I don't know if this, or honestly anything here, is enough to change your mind, but if you did like Micro Dojo, I think that all of this is a good thing to the game. So yes, you have that variability from the triple layered board, or more specifically just the way you can configure those action tiles. The loyalty track along the side, I like it. It's another thing to be mindful of, especially in conjunction with the types of actions that come out. I do find that it does depend on how many of these actions related to the loyalty track do come out, and so if you're trying to make that a big part of your game, you might want to make sure you have enough of those actions. I like it. It doesn't necessarily change the game in any amazing ways, but it is fun to have. And then the more variety, both in terms of the buildings, and specifically the faction buildings, all of that is a good thing. It just gives you, again, more variety to the experience, more objectives, more buildings, more variability, more characters if you're playing with the advanced mode, more options as far as the movement abilities. All of that is a good thing. Like I said already, for me, the best thing is just the fact that the core board is different every single game, changing up the puzzle, not the overall way you approach it, but the individual nitpicky how you're going to move, what you're going to do, trying to figure out which pathway you're moving forward as you try to make your way towards the victory. Now, I will say there are a few small nitpicks. First of all, this is one where I'm not even sure how the game actually plays, but the symbol for these tokens over here is a double-sided token over here that shows you the either or over there. Now, I'm not even confident whether that actually means that you're supposed to be taking one or the other, or whether you have to lock in one side as it comes. Chalk this down to prototype rules. It's just not 100% clear. The way we've been playing it is you do have to lock in the type of token you're taking as you take it. I think that's the way you play. Otherwise, I imagine these would actually be double on them, but that's small little rules nitpick. And then secondly, over here, for these actions over here, for these buildings, whenever you acquire a faction building, it shows you the cost at the bottom, like the buildings generally do, but then additionally in the rules it says you have to give in a favor token to get those buildings. I wish that I had just taken the extra token and just put down on the buildings, showing you the favor thing. I see no reason not to include that as a visible cost, because again, it's not a lot of rules overhead, but right now you have pay the cost on the buildings. Oh, and if it's a favor building, you have to know the rule that you pay an extra token in. Again, it's not a big deal, but it seems like there's room on these tiles to just spread out the line a little bit and throw that favor token on there, so it's just more consistent in the rules approach it's taking. Those are the only real nitpicks around the expansion. Past that, everything the expansion is bringing is good. As far as do you need this expansion, will this change your opinion of the game, all that stuff, well, I kind of touched upon that already. I don't think that this is a drastic game changer by any means. I think if you played Micro Dojo and if it wasn't for you, I don't think this is changing that. If you played Micro Dojo and you liked it but you wanted more from the experience, I think this does give you more from the experience. For me, it does push it from a 3 to a 3.5, still with the caveat that I am taking into account how much gain there is for the price point as well as the general size that it has. At the end of the day, for me, this still is a game that is prioritizing that price point, prioritizing that size, and it's doing so at the cost of some degree of accessibility. It still has some of the problems I had with Micro Dojo, that slotting on a shelf somewhere is not something I necessarily want to do, although I haven't seen the final box. I don't know how that manages, or how that's going to change things, but I don't want to go searching for this game every time I get it. Additionally, some of the tokens and icons are just tiny, and it's doing so specifically to give you that tiny package, but it does so at the cost of some of the accessibility. Past that, the core puzzle is fun. The core puzzle is strategic. The core puzzle involves you moving around, trying to find a pattern of actions. It still is a little bit victim to one of the problems I have with the original Micro Dojo, in the sense that sometimes you can get to a point where the end game kind of devolves into just a stalemate of trying to block somebody until they can get through. I will say that the loyalty track, that's one of the areas where I do like it in. That gives you another avenue to focus on, and because you have more stuff, there is that option on the table as far as just a few more things to be mindful of. Additionally, I mentioned there is a longer game variant. I have not played that. It's not printed on the other side of this, but I believe it's supposed to be printed on the other side to take the game to 9 rounds instead of 7, so that gives you more variability as far as how you explore it. So overall, all good things. I don't think it's changing any major minds, but I do think it is good additional content for Micro Dojo if that's what you're looking for. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.